so excited to share this month's chat with you. Today we have 1988 Olympic silver and world silver medalist, three-time Canadian champion, and Canadian icon, one of my personal favorites, Miss Elizabeth Manley. It is so good to have you. Thank you so much for coming and
Oh,
chatting.
Amber, thank you. It's my honor to be a part of this.
I can remember watching you on the Olympics and like just completely mesmerized. And even from your professional career and everything, you always had this joy and you're like this little pixie. You just jumped and you had all this energy and you were just like, go for it. And I always was like, I want to be that. Never quite made it. You just had this personality that drew us all in. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now, let's go. Tell us a little bit about how old were you when you started skating?
Oh gosh. I actually started when I was 2.5, if you
Oh,
can
wow.
believe that. Yeah, and actually how I got involved with skating was I grew up in a hockey family. So I had three older brothers. I was the only girl. I was the youngest. And we literally lived, slept, and ate the NHL. Like my brothers were going to make the NHL, and that's all it was about, right? And when my parents were at work, they didn't realize, but my brothers would torment me. They'd put me in like the street hockey net. They'd shoot pucks at me. They would, and everything. So it's funny because at a very young age, I became very competitive because of my brothers. And I knew in life that I wanted to be better than my brothers in whatever I did. But there was no girl hockey in those days, right?
Right. Yeah.
So my mom actually put me into learn to skate, can skate, we call it here in Canada, literally for babysitting services because we were there all day watching hockey games and my dad was coaching and everything. And they were trying to figure out what are we going to do with Liz because she's, can never find her. She's, robbing parents for 50 cents for hot chocolates. She's, doing all this. So I was actually put into skating just as a babysitting service. Never did they dream that that was the start of something.
You never know what you're going to start if you start.
Exactly. And I literally, apparently, my mom always said to me, as soon as they put me on the ice, I took off. No one had to hold my hand. I just took off. And they literally, in about 4 or 5 months, they handed my mom a shoebox. And my mom said, "What is this?" And they said, "It's all the badges. She's too good. Put her into figure skating." Right. So that was depressing for my mom because babysitting was done, but two, she was excited because maybe she'd have a little girl as a figure skater, right? So and that's when it all started. So I really started, figure skating when I was like 3, if you can imagine. I did my first ice show solo when I was 5.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah, so I was a pretty quick learner.
God. So obviously you enjoyed it as a kid, but then as you start getting into it a little bit more, the sport changes, the demands of the sport change. How did you keep that love for skating and that joy that you always seem to have?
Well, many people listening or seeing this interview, I didn't handle it well. So, it's quite public knowledge. I was a pioneer athlete in Canada to come out with mental health issues. And when I was 16, I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and I'd had a nervous breakdown. And I literally, my body fell apart. I lost all my hair. I gained a tremendous amount of weight and I had to quit skating. And this is what I do today. I'm an advocate. I'm a huge advocate here for mental health. I'm a life coach. I work with people. But, at that time, mental health was at its highest in stigma in the 80s. And people just didn't want to talk about it. And when I tried to open up to the world about it, people weren't ready. I remember getting the comment all the time about Canada's sweetheart and mental health doesn't deserve to be in the same sentence. So they didn't want to talk about it. And I even wrote a book after the Olympics about my whole experience, and half my story was missing in the book. And I remember saying to the publishing company, like, why is so much of the story missing? And they said, because the world's not ready to hear that. We want the book to sell.
Hmm.
And I was like, but I'm doing it to help people, right? To have people understand. So, Amber, it was, it took a lot of years. I was very vocal. I was very open about it. People weren't ready for it. But as I sit here today with you, I'm very excited that I'm able to tell my story now. I'm able to get the message out there, not only to athletes, but just everyday people. I mean, it used to be 1 in 5 suffered from mental health. Now it's 3 in 5 after COVID and politics and what the world's going through and everything. And it's a crisis that's happening right now. And I'm highly involved. I do a lot of keynote tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow I'm doing an interview for the National Children's Mental Health Association. So, so I feel good. This may sound really strange, but don't get me wrong. I love winning the Medal Olympics. It's everything I dreamed of. But at my age now, I almost feel like it was a stepping stone for what I was really meant to do, and that's to work and help with people.
I love that. I love that,
Thank
that it gave you that platform.
you.
And
Absolutely.
on like a little side note, I have to really say, I really appreciate that you were one of the first pioneers to go out there and say, this is a real issue. This is a
It
real
is.
problem. I mean, the pioneers that don't have that easy path, like you said, they take the stuff out of your book and everything.
Right.
But you started the trend. You started that
Yeah.
snowball rolling downhill. And I'm so grateful for that because it's made such a big difference in opening the doors now. We still have a long ways to go, I think,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
but I'm so grateful for people like you doing that.
Thank you. And and we're able to talk about it now.
Mhm.
And like even just what you said about your husband. I mean, we need to talk about it. You need to be there for him, and you need to be able to be that shoulder, for the person. The days of not talking about it are done. We need
Right.
to have this as frontline, conversations. And, sometimes that's all people need is just someone to talk to. Right.
Right. Yeah. To
Yeah.
understand that this is real. This is not something that's just made up in your head and you can just say get over it and that's it. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. But one of the biggest questions that I get is, would I ever turn the clocks back? Would I have gone to Lake Placid, New York to train away from my family? Would I have made all these different changes? But, 80% of my mental health issues wasn't skating. It was my parents getting divorced. It was, being sent away at a young age. It was yes, the pressure of skating and things like that. But it made me who I am today. And I'm grateful for that experience because now I know, okay, if I'm not going to have a good day, then I'm going to take a me day. I'm going to take a mental health day. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need a day to just, lay on the couch, cry if you want to cry, binge watch Netflix, do whatever you want. But the big part of that is make sure the next day you get up, you put those big girl panties on and you say, okay, I got this now, right? And it's like,
I love that.
I can do this, right? And
Mhm.
I'm interacting a lot of this work that I'm doing with my skating clinics and my seminars and everything I'm doing. I make that a big part of when I come in. It's not just about what goes on the ice.
Mhm.
So I make sure when I go and I do whether it's an adult workshop, an adult seminar, whether it's a stars or like younger kids, competitors, I make sure that I have a good hour with them off the ice to talk to them about mental health
Nice.
and not being afraid to talk because athletes are trained not to show their emotions, right? How many times, Amber, have we heard take your tears out to the parking lot, never show how you're feeling, things like that, right? And we need to stop that. We need to like embrace a child, an adult. If somebody is upset at the rink or something, we need to be able to embrace that and help them through it.
That is such an important tool that I think a lot of people forgot, and I
Yes.
think that makes you stronger for the next obstacle. And I love that you are working towards that and helping people find that tool. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's exciting. That's awesome in
Thank
my
you.
opinion. So
Thank you.
now, so you briefly talked about how like you got moved to Lake Placid and trained for a little bit, changed coaches. That was a rather rough period of time.
Yeah.
How long did that take you to kind of like bounce back from that? Like what I know you had to have some kind of good team around you to help you because that's not a point where a young kid can say, "Oh, I just gonna fix myself.
Yeah.
Here's the button and I
Yeah.
hit it."
You know, when I was in Lake Placid, it was really only of about 7 months in total that I was there. And, you know, being such a shock to my family, you know, everything that was happening, especially the loss of my hair and everything. Um, it- I've been very, very open about this, but it took me a long time because people weren't ready to hear. But that particular night that I was diagnosed, I remember sitting locked in my bedroom, looking at myself in the mirror and truly believing the world would be better without me. I was very suicidal. I just thought I had let everyone down. The hardest thing for me to get over was I thought I let Canada down. I thought I let my whole country down. And I'm so grateful, but it was the very, you know, only a couple days later, we got a phone call from a psychologist in Ottawa, Canada, where I was living, and wanted to help me. We had no money. You know, my
Yeah.
mom, it was just my mom and me, you know, trying to keep me in a sport. And I only went to an appointment for my mom because my mom just, you know, she said, please, will you just go? And he wanted to help us, help pro bono, no cost. He had so much belief in me. And, you know, that turned into, you know, one appointment to 10 to hundreds to 4 years and to ending up in Calgary. And as I said earlier, you know, there was so much more going on with me than was just skating. You know, my dad was in Europe, he was in the Air Force, my parents had divorced, my brothers were off playing their hockey, my mom was struggling. And, you know, for a 16-year-old kid, that's how old I was. That's a lot on my shoulders, right?
It's,
But
yeah.
I didn't know that it was bothering me. And my body just completely broke down. And that's the only way that my body could tell me you need help. And so I'm such a advocate for, you know, if there's help out there, get it, because it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. And I wouldn't be sitting here today talking with you if I hadn't had that, you know, psychologist reach out and offer his help. And um you know, and the thing is you don't get cured. You know, depression and anxiety, it's something you don't get cured of, but you learn how to live a fulfilled life with it. And as I said, it's given me this incredible journey to help other people now.
That is so amazing. And like you said, it wasn't just the pressures of skating. And I think a lot of times we look at skating athletes or any athlete or these stars on TV and we're like, oh, well, that's the only issue they have. It's this. And we don't realize they have a life outside of the
Absolutely.
sport. And
Absolutely.
so
We're people, we're normal people, right? And I've always made it, you know, my mother always said to me, the day your personality changes is the day I'm taking you out of skating. And she really kept me grounded. She was my hero. And that's the way I am today. And, you know, I'm just me. You know, I try to get, you know, people, you know, I'll run into them in a grocery store. Oh my God, it's Elizabeth Manley and that all this. And I'm like, I'm normal. You know, I take my garbage out every Monday, just like you. It's like, you know, so I really maintain my humbleness and you know, and I'm always there for people. I never just walk away from people and don't have time for them, because you never know who you could run into. It could be another Elizabeth Manley, you know, that's going through something, and words really matter. And you know, take the 2 minutes if somebody just wants to talk to you. Take a couple minutes because it might change not only their day but their life.
that is so true. And I think in such a busy life, a lot of times we forget that everybody's got something that they're battling and just that moment
Absolutely.
of kindness isn't going to hurt, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Especially with the world today.
Right. Yes. Too much.
I know.
Now, you decided after all of that and working with your sports psychologist, you decided to come back to skating. Was that a hard decision or was that something that you're like, I just can't stay away?
No, it was, you know, with the amount of time that I spent with him and everything, what the conclusion was that I really loved skating. Skating was in my heart, but I think I lost that focus, you know, as I became national champion, as I was competing at worlds, as I was doing this, I started to lose that, that what was the reason I became a skater. And I became a skater because I really loved skating. So I brought the love back to my skating, and I made rules. And I do this a lot with like my clients and who I talk to. Is like I use the word selfish a lot. And selfish doesn't mean like go do this for me, go do that for me, like not that kind of selfish. But selfish means you've got to put yourself first. What do I need? And what's going to make my day better today? What do I need today? And to be very open about that with coaches and skaters or whoever I might be with. And so there was a lot of things like I didn't do a lot of media because the media just wanted to talk about my mental health, right? They just wanted to talk because it was a good story in the 80s, right?
Right. Yeah.
Was a good story. It's like the Miley Cyrus of the 80s, right? So it's like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it didn't fit into my well-being plan, I didn't do it. I learned to say no, and I learned to say I can't do that. I'm sorry. And by the time I got to Calgary, I had so much love for my skating again. And all the expressions that the night I won the free program, all those, the gasps and the smiles and the crying and everything, it really wasn't about the medal. It was really about, one, I did it. Two, I did this for anybody that's suffering in silence. I did it for them as well. And so in my family, the silver medal, we call it a gold medal in life. And that's how we talk about my medal. And everybody in the world can have a gold medal in life. It doesn't have to be an Olympic medal. It can just be a medal in life that you were able to, accomplish something that made you happy, you were passionate about, and you were awarded for it. And that's how I look at my medal.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, your long program, was that a compilation of several different programs?
Yeah, and kind of like a level two, but well, I look back like camel, lay back, back sit. How plain can you get on a combination spin? But we decided to pick, I see what the skaters are skating to today, and I'm like, oh, if only we could have skated to vocal in my day and things like that, because I really became a fun, great show skater, right? Like I love to
Oh,
perform.
yes, you did.
But yeah, so it was a combination of all the music that I loved over the last, let's say, 5 years up to Calgary. And we just kind of pieced them together. And, so many people, on Facebook or whatever it might be, asked me, what was the slow music in your program? And all I remembered was called Canadian Concerto. So I don't know. But one of my all-time favorite movies was Gigi, and so that's why I got the night they invented champagne and everything from the movie Gigi. So it was just music that I loved.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of like every time the music would change, you'd be like, oh, and it was like you just got another shot of energy and you were like, oh, we're gonna dance along to this. And it was just so much fun. And with the Battle of the Carmens and everything else going on,
Yeah.
It was a nice bright spot.
Yeah, it was almost a bit of a breath of fresh air with all the dramatic music that was going on, It was like, and then I come out, So, and that was kind of the pro skater I became. Like, I wanted to be Scott Hamilton more than anything in this world. Like, I just idolized Scott Hamilton. I would drive miles to watch him skate, like Flaming Leaves and Lake Platte. I would go everywhere. And he inspired me as a pro. And there are so many events that I have on tape that Scotty was commentating. And for me, it's such a win. Like he'd always say, this is the most versatile skater you're ever going to watch. She's just a bundle of energy. And all these compliments that he always gave me as a pro, it motivated me more and more to be that skater that I could skate to anything. I could make a character into anything. And, I don't even know if Scott even knows this, but he's the reason I became that type of pro skater, because he was that kind of pro skater. You could throw a piece of music at Scott Hamilton and he'd make so much fun of it. And that's really what I wanted to be as a pro.
You could definitely see that from skating from Legends to the Fall to, what was it? Are you ready for this? I mean, you always had, it was either I knew I was going to see something beautiful or I was going to be highly entertained with Rolling on
Yeah.
the River, Proud
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah.
You always had these high energy or beautiful programs. It was one of
Thank
those I
you.
could sit back and relax and watch and just be like, okay, I know it's just going to be a fun event, you know?
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Tina Turner, Proud Mary, I think was one of my most favorites. And then and I went from that to Alanis Morissette uninvited, and I dyed my hair dark, and like, so, it was just kind of like, it depended on, we in life today we talk about mindfulness. Well, it depended where my mind was in those days. And I remember when I did Alanis Morissette, Stephanie Gross choreographed. It was fantastic, but I had just been dumped by a boyfriend of 8 years, and I was, you know I hated men, and I wanted to do a number to portray that, So it was like, it really depended where my life was that I would create, something that was going on with me.
And I love that because I think that genuine came out, it wasn't just like, oh, a facade. And, a lot of skaters, especially lately, you see a lot of skaters go out and they skate to the music, but they don't feel the music, have that
Yeah.
presence.
Yeah. And it's really interesting you say that because I just did a huge adult camp here in Canada, and I did a whole presentation, segment of it. And I put on a piece of music, and then I asked each adult, what did you feel? What did the music feel? And it was interesting because it took them a couple times to understand what I was trying to get at, right? And so when they had a hard time answering on the first one of the adults said, well, what do you feel, Liz? And I said, I feel like I'm walking through a forest with a beautiful white wolf walking beside me. And they all went, right? So then I put on another piece. So then I started getting this creativity, right? Like from these adults, and they started to get it. Like they were like, yeah, like every program should have a story, even if it's personal or even if it's something you can project. And that's really what presentation and artistry is about. And, you see some of these great skaters, Jason Brown, he shows a story. Patrick Chan, he shows a story. Tessa and Scott, they show a story, right? And that's what makes the best watched skating,
Yes.
right?
I love how you put that because that is true. That's one of the things that I love and I think distinguishes skating from speed skating or swimming. They're all highly competitive. They're all very strong sports, but you make that connection and you pull the audience in with you on that journey of that 2 minutes, that 4 minutes, whatever you're on that ice for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love so much. And and I'm kind of jumping ahead here on you, but I've created this new class called Ice for Life. And this Ice for Life class it's a combination of mindfulness, breathing, being in the moment, feeling the music, very slow edges, things like that, right? So I've kind of taken everything that I've learned in my 50 some odd years and what do I want them to feel? And the first time I did the class was with 63 adults in Canada, and all of a sudden the class was over and they're like, no, we want to keep going, so because it just teaches them to slow down and love what they're doing, and not making it all about winning and go 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 and fast, and I got to land this and I got to do this. No, sometimes we need to take a step back, and it's exactly the same thing, Amber, in life. Sometimes you need to take a step back and take a breath and enjoy what we have and where we are. And that's what I try to do with this class, is just enjoy that moment, enjoy the ice. And I call it Ice for Life because it's for all ages, right? You can skate till you're 80.
Yes, and I love that. That's kind of the premise of what we're trying to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.